Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I am a Boeing 737 pilot, and in today's video let's talk about at what point on an approach you need to decide to throw it all away and go around. Now this of course means the landing gate, and in this video we'll talk about what the landing gate is, where the landing gate is, and what you need to do at it. So let's get right into it. First of all, what is the landing gate? The landing gate is the point in the approach where all the stabilized approach criteria needs to be met, otherwise a go-around is mandatory. So to make it easy, it is the point where your airplane needs to be configured to landing in order to be allowed to continue the approach to prevent unstabilized approaches. Now, where is the landing gate then? Well, this is highly dependent on the operator, so every airline is going to have a different deviation or a different explanation where the landing gate actually is. Now, in my airline, we do it the following way. For any approach in IMC, the landing gate is 1,000 feet above aerodrome level. So in the 737's cockpit, you have that little white bar on your altimeter, and that is going to show you where that point 1,000 feet above the airport is. Now, that is going to come in right over here the moment that we actually are 1,000 feet above the destination field. For any precision approach, non-precision approach in VMC, so in visual meteorological conditions, the landing gate is 500 feet above the landing aerodrome. And that once again is going to be indicated by an amber band on your altimeter tape. For a visual approach, the landing gate is also 500 feet, and for any circling approach or sidestep approach, the landing gate is 300 feet. However, you need to have the airplane completely configured by the time you pass 500 feet. But maneuvering needs to be complete by 300. Now, what is the definition of VMC then? Well, that once again is of course defined in a certain way by the law, and of course airlines can change this deviation. So in my airline, VMC is defined as the cloud ceiling is above 1,000 feet AAL, and note that any cloud ceiling is only a broken or an overcast layer of clouds. Few and scattered do not count as a cloud ceiling. And the reported meteorological visibility is in excess of 5,000 meters. Both of these conditions have to be met, then we are in a VMC condition. Now, there are a couple of ways to make it easier how to determine if you are going to be able to meet your landing gate. One of these is the vertical situation display, as we can see down here. Now, we can see these little markings on the VSD up here in white and in amber. Those are the points on the approach where on the profile that is drawn over here, we are going to pass the landing gates. White at 1,000 feet for IMC, amber at 500 feet for an approach in VMC. And the vertical situation display shall be used by the crew to assess energy management on final approach. The approach should be terminated where the VSD indicates that the approach will not be stabilized by the 1,000 feet or 500 feet gate as applicable. So, to understand this, we need to understand the meaning of this little green circle that you see popping in and out over here all the time. There it is. And this little circle basically indicates where we are going to reach the speed that we've dialed in on the mode control panel. So you can see right now we are showing about 200 knots, and the target speed is set down here to the flap 5 speed. Now, lovely flight simulator just retracted my flaps. Of course it would do some nonsense here, so let's get those back out. And then you're going to see that the speed book currently matches the 5 speed. So be aware that the green circle, however, indicates the MCP selected speed, not your landing speed. So for the green circle to be accurate, you need to have landing conditions selected already. In other words, the speed needs to be dialed into VREF plus whatever wind additive and gust additive you need. Now, what this means is something that we are going to see later on in this approach. However, let's first of all talk about the actual stable approach criteria that you need to meet at the landing gate now that we understand what the landing gate actually is. And basically, All approaches require landing gear down and flap 15 selection at 5 miles in IMC or 4 miles in VMC, with the exception of vertical speed non-precision approaches, which require landing gear down flap 15 at 5 miles. Now, thereafter, configure to landing configuration to be stable at 1000 feet in IMC or 500 in VMC. Tailwind conditions or ATC speed requirements may require earlier configuration points, which where possible should be briefed to ensure compliance with landing gate requirements. During all non-precision approaches, the point at which the landing configuration selection commences, so gear down flap 15, may be modified and briefed by the captain at his discretion. Now, let's determine which conditions do we need to meet by the time that we cross the landing gate. And this is going to be a rather lengthy list, but I will provide you with a simplified explanation thereafter. In order to make the continue call at the landing gate, you have to be on speed, which means VREF to VREF plus 15 with a maximum of VREF plus 20, on glide path, which is plus minus 1 dot, so the glide path needs to be between this point and this point. You have to be on the localizer within plus minus 1 dot. And here comes a little trick. Looking at the scale, it might be easy to see this as a dot. However, be aware this is actually a square, because when the approach mode is selected on the flight director, you are going to get an expanded localizer scale. If we bring up the actual approach page on the navigation display, you will see what I mean. So, in the expanded localizer scale, your localizer is going to move to this point when you only have half a dot deflection, and full deflection becomes 1 dot to show you better the point where you need to initiate a go-around. On the navigation display, if you select the approach mode, then you will, however, get the full scale. So on the PFD, a localizer that's deflected to here, on the navigation display is going to be a localizer only here. So be aware of that expanded localizer scale in the 737. Now, you have to be within plus minus 1 dot on the localizer, or if you are flying an RNAV approach, you need to be on the center line, which means half the required RMP value. Now, the RMP for typical non-precision RNAV approaches is 0.3, which means 0.3 nautical miles. So you have to be within half a mile of that, which means 0.15 nautical miles. In order to monitor your RMP development, you can either just have a look at the navigation display, which is going to provide you that information. If the ANP scale is selected, so in this airplane we can see we do not have it, but other airplanes do have the little scale down here, or you just go down to the RMP progress page on the FMC, where you are going to see your cross-track error over here. Also, you see the RMP, which is 0.3, shown over here. And then you have the cross-track error below this, which is going to be 0.15 maximum on an RNAV approach. Appropriate thrust needs to be set, so your engines must not be at idle as they are right now, but your engines actually need to be set to an appropriate thrust. And the vertical speed has to be proportional to the current ground speed, but not more than 1000 feet a minute unless briefed prior to the approach. And if any of these parameters cannot be confirmed, then at the landing gate you need to call for go-around. Okay, so what does all of that mean in practical terms then? Let's quickly talk about it. So, in order to be stabilized, basically, you see your VREF down here and your white buck up here, which is VREF plus 20. Your speed needs to be within this gap. Note that it is permissible for the speed to be outside of it temporarily, beyond the landing gate, but an immediate positive correction is required. So let's say, for example, you approach at VREF plus 15, and a gust brings you temporarily to VREF plus 21, but the speed drops back within the required band immediately, then the approach may be continued. But if the speed stays outside or above this white buck for a time, then you will obviously have to go around from that approach. The glide slope and the localizer need to be within 1 dot, or if you're flying a non-precision approach, you need to be within half the RMP value and within plus minus 75 feet vertically, or 3 reds or 3 rights on the puppy. An appropriate amount of thrust needs to be set. Now, typically in the 737 that is somewhere between 55 and 65% N1, depending on weight and flap setting. And your vertical speed needs to be proportional to the ground speed, so that means less than 1,000 feet a minute, or higher if required by the approach. And that is the definition of the landing criteria. Now, if you pass the landing gate and thereafter exceed any of these values, then you need to apply corrective action immediately or go around. And with apply corrective action immediately, I refer to something like, let's say the speed exceeds this 20 buck temporarily, but comes back straight away into the speed band, then the approach may be continued. Similarly, if, especially at very low altitude, your glide stop temporarily goes outside the 1 dot, but comes straight back into it, then the approach may be continued as well. But good judgment of the pilot is required to assess these points. If in doubt, go around. There is a no-blame policy for go-arounds in effect, and you can simply come back for a second approach. Alright, this concludes today's video. I hope that you have found this one interesting, and if you did, then do let me know in the comments below. And I'm really looking forward to hear what you guys think about it. As always, like, comment and subscribe, as it really does help out the channel, and I'm very much looking forward to see you all again on the next one. If you do want to support the channel, you can either become a channel member, where you can get, for example, early access to newly released videos, or where you can even request me to do videos for you. Now, that's going to be it from my side. Thank you very much for joining, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next one.